Sports. Are you ready for rapid fire?
Let's go!
All right,
rapid
baby.
Fire.
All right. So Salty asked something about this in the chat. This is our lead rapid fire question today. EA Sports, of course, announced it's been 2 years since they announced that they're bringing back the college football video game, and that is going to be next summer. A year from now, they will be bringing it back. Soon after that announcement 2 years ago, Jack Swarbrick issued a release saying Notre Dame would not take part until players were guaranteed compensation from the game. Well, a report today at ESPN.com says EA has reached agreement with 120 schools to compensate players for their name, image, and likeness. But as of right now, Notre Dame is not one of those schools. I'll just use Salty's conclusion. If Notre Dame opts out, is that good or bad?
It's bad for everyone. It's bad for everyone, okay? It's bad for us because we all want to play as Notre Dame in EA Sports, NCAA National Championship or whatever. You know, we all want to play as Notre Dame. That's our school. That we're fans. We want to play with them or play against them. Either way, you know, they need to be in there. So it's bad for fans. It's bad for the players because this is another opportunity to get some NIL money. And I'm not even talking about the Sam Hartmans and the Audric Estimes of the world. I'm talking about the Justin Fishers and the other guys that, because they're basically going to, the way I understood the article that I read, they're going to allow anybody that's on the team to say, yes, I want in. And then they're going to like do, you know, a computer generated
look, AI generated. Yeah, it's going to be very realistic, apparently.
And everybody's going to get a cut. And that's going to be awesome for those guys that are the 80 through 85 and then walk-ons and all of that. They're going to have an opportunity to make a little bit of NIL. And I think that that's awesome. And they get immortalized in a video game. It's bad all around if Notre Dame doesn't get on board. And I understood, I want to say this, I did understand why Notre Dame stuck their neck out in the first place and said they're not going to participate unless there's NIL and all of that. I get it. They need to be the big voice. They need to be the guy in the room. I get that. Now it's here. Get on board.
Get on board. That's exactly right. 10 FBS conferences, 120 total schools. So Notre Dame is one of about 11 schools right now that have not committed to this. And absolutely, if they're going to pay, Notre Dame needs to be in there because that was the reason that they used, as I said, in that release that Jack Swarbrick sent out a couple of years ago. That was the reasoning. We're only going to do it if they decide they're going to pay. They're going to pay. So Notre Dame needs to be in this. Notre Dame is a bedrock of college football.
Yes.
And the players now can be compensated. And by the way, they all need to be tipping their hat to Ed O'Bannon for the lawsuit that he filed. You know, like, I remember being in college playing the video game that had Ed O'Bannon and his brothers in there, you know, back in the 90s, like when the UCLA, when they were winning the national championship and going to Final Fours back then. And EA Sports hasn't put out this college game in almost 10 years now. I believe 2013 was the last time they did it. And it's all because of that lawsuit. That lawsuit was still going on. It was concluded, I believe in 2014 is when the lawsuit concluded. Ed O'Bannon won the lawsuit. They're going to pay the players now to do it. They just haven't decided, I guess, you know, like exactly how much and, you know, how all the compensation is going to work, but they are going to pay the players to do it. So Notre Dame needs to be in there. And personally, I think they will. It's probably just a matter of them making sure, you know, what sort of the formalities of this stuff are going to be before they come out and make some kind of announcement. I do think that they will, but they absolutely need to be.
Absolutely. It's one of the best games out there. Love. The problem is I don't have any more video game consoles anymore. I stopped buying them, but now I want to play this game. Like that's all I would ever play is like sports games. I'm in trouble. I'm in trouble, Sean.
Tommy says he personally hates Ed O'Bannon for causing him to miss out on this game for the last decade of his life.
I get that.
But does your son, like, does he do video games and stuff like that? Where is he on in all that?
He does a little bit of gaming every now and again when he doesn't have sports, which thank God is not very often. So like, you know, Fortnite and all that crap, like he would do all that, but he was more like putting his computer together. Like he's more like the engineer type. I'm guessing kind of like Jesse. Like he just wanted to get his hands dirty and like build it. And then he got bored once it was built and he would play on it. But like, thank God he's got sports. Let me just say that.
Yep.
When he was injured, when he broke his hip and he couldn't do anything, he got back into the video games. I'm like, oh no.
That's just what you want. You're injured, and now you're doing even less by sitting around playing video games.
I was like, no, thank God he's not injured anymore.
Oh, so ACC, all kinds of stuff going on there. With everything going on in that conference right now, scale of 1 to 10, how confident are you the ACC will still be intact in 2 years?
I'm still pretty confident. There's a lot of moving parts that have to take place in order for those schools to, opt out or pay out or whatever to get out of the ACC. I'm still fairly confident the ACC is going to stick around. If they don't, it's going to be just absolute mass chaos, figuring out where all those teams are going to land and what's going to happen, where they're going to go, all of these different things. So I just feel like we're not there yet. So I'm going to say I am confident that there's still going to be, what is that? So it was 1 to 10.
1 to 10.
The higher number is confidence, right? So I'm at like a 9. I'm at a 9 that they'll still be together.
John's at a 10. I'd put mine at a 9 as well. I'll just allow for something. But
right.
There have been a lot of people just in the last couple of days just come out, just because 7 or 8 teams are raising a ruckus and they're discontented doesn't mean anyone's going anywhere, because like I've heard people say, well, all they've got to do is vote and they can leave. It's not nearly as simple as that. This still comes down, seeing like Derek, if he's being serious, is a lot less confident. He says 5.7. This still comes down to money and stuff that I've read in the last day. We've talked about it before. The grant of rights in the ACC runs through 2036. The current buyout fee is $120 million per school. Oof. And from what I've read, not only would the schools have to pay that buyout fee, $120 million, but they would also give up their rights to make TV revenue for however many years is left until 2036. Wow. So you're paying an upfront buyout plus you're forfeiting future TV revenue by doing this. So like you're talking about, potential of like $300 million that you would be forfeiting, like if you tried to get out right now. So it's not nearly as easy as, well, these schools are disgruntled and they'll find a way to get out. It sounds like someone would have already jumped if it wasn't an ironclad deal.
Right.
Like that's just the way it is. And that's why these schools are trying to band together like this.
Yeah, and they're trying to do the safety in numbers thing, and they're like, well, you can't be mad at all of us.
That's right.
Like, well, yeah, they can. Right. I mean, they can be, and they're not going to let you out. And shame on the ACC and the schools that were there on jumping on this TV deal when they did for the exorbitant amount of time that they did, because now they're getting screwed. You should have taken the shorter amount of time, and then you could renegotiate. And they messed that one up.
The DT says the ACC needs a Peacock deal to supplement their current deal. And, again, not knowing what the details of this contract is, because it is with ESPN, which owns the ACC network. So it's ESPN/ACC network. I don't know if they are allowed to go out and do any other deals that would allow them to, get revenue streams from any other sources, like whether it's Peacock or Amazon or Hulu or, the CW, like the Pac-12 has talked about. I mean, that would be one way to at least get something, but I don't know. You're still talking about like second and third tier type games that would go there. So I don't know how much you'd necessarily get for it anyway. So Peacock is for winners, Derek says.
Yes, it is.
So Vince, if the ACC does implode, which again, we're pretty confident, at least in the near future, this is not going to happen. But if it were to implode, if you're Notre Dame, would you consider a similar arrangement with a conference like the Big 12 or the Pac-12?
The short answer is yes. The Pac-12 would be last on my list. I would. The time differences are ridiculous. The The
And the
travel would
distance
be
is
too
too far.
much.
Yeah,
Yeah, that
exactly.
would not. I don't think that would work out as well. The Big 12 would be bad enough because a lot of those schools are obviously also further away. But they would have to be aligned with somebody because of all the other sports. I mean, you just this day and age, you just can't be independent with all of your other sports. You're going to have to do something. So, and inevitably, that's going to come with an agreement for football. And we talked about it the other day when, we talked about how, it really is good for Notre Dame to be playing these ACC schools. It would be good for them to have 4 to 5 or whatever games locked in against whatever conference it happens to be. Now, I will caveat that with it needs to be a Power 5 conference. Like somebody put the MAC in there or whatever. Yeah, it needs to be a Power 5 conference. But
well, Mike, I think it's Chi-Town has said before. I think we were just talking about it a little bit yesterday. Like the Big East is someplace, like that he's talked about, because that would allow them to still be
they would be
independent.
completely independent football wise.
And I just think that it's going to be really tough with all of these schools going to, funneling toward the Big Ten and the SEC. Because remember, both of those conferences are going to have even more schools if the ACC were to implode, because that would be the ACC, or the goal of many of those schools. There'd be some leftovers that would have to find a place. But I just think it's going to be continually tougher for Notre Dame trying to make a go of it as an independent, if their affiliation with a conference, whether it's the ACC or whoever, comes to an end. And like John is saying, Big Ten, I just think it's going to be all or nothing for the Big Ten. I don't think the Big Ten is going to take Notre Dame in an arrangement like they have with the ACC right now. I think it's going to be football or nothing. I don't think they're going to allow partial membership like the ACC.
I agree.
I think the Big 12 would probably do cartwheels to have Notre Dame involved with them if it came to that. And remember, they're, BYU and some of these schools are joining the Big 12 as well.
Cincinnati.
And Cincinnati's coming in, UCF, Houston.
Yeah.
So for the most part, I don't think it would be, I don't think your top end in the Big 12 in that fact, because I'm really a little skeptical that TCU is going to remain a consistent power year in and year out. We'll see kind of how that falls, but I don't think your top end is going to be quite as good as what you get from the ACC when you have a Clemson or a true national power like that. But for the most part, I don't think your schedule would be that much different if you were doing.
I agree.
Big 12, and
I agree, because
your Olympic sports are going to have a home, and that's still part of the deal as well. That as Jack Swarbrick has said, you've got to have a place for your Olympics.
And
so
the Big 12,
yeah,
the Big 12 would be on the doorstep of Jack Swarbrick's. Like, we'll take it. Whatever deal you have with the ACC, you can have it with us. That'd be great, because right now the Big 12 is struggling to stay afloat, stay alive. They're going to bring in these new schools. That's great. But are you kidding me? Bringing Notre Dame in and their Olympic sports, they would do that in a heartbeat with the exact same football agreement that they have with the ACC right now. The Big 12 doesn't have a big enough stick to be like, nope, it's all or nothing.
Right.
No way. They would beg for Notre Dame to be a part.
They would love to have Notre Dame, like for Notre Dame to be able to go to any of those schools across the Big 12.
Right.
They would love it.
Absolutely.
Go to Stillwater, Oklahoma, and
oh my gosh,
Lawrence, Kansas, Manhattan, Kansas, Ames, Iowa, those places. They would love to have Notre Dame.
Yes. Yep. Absolutely.
Even if it's partial. Yeah. And for that matter, not just Notre Dame in football, the other sports like basket, the two basketballs would pack the places as well.
Yeah. Yep. No doubt about it.
So speaking of basketball, high school basketball is going to do away with the 1-and-1 free throw situation. They're going to switch to the rules that the women's college basketball game has been using for the last several years. So the way it's going to work is, rather than, you get to 7 fouls and a half to get to the bonus, and then you get to 10, you shoot 2 free throws. They're going to do away with the 1-and-1. And so now you get to 5 fouls and a quarter. And at that point, you shoot 2 free throws. There's no 1-and-1. And then each quarter, the fouls reset. You go to 5, and that's when you shoot free throws. So do you buy or sell this change, Vince?
I'm trying to understand the reasoning for the change. I'm sure you could speak more vividly on that because of your association with the women's game, and they've been doing this for a while now. When they went and switched to quarters and then they adjusted their fouls. And I remember doing a couple of games with you the first year that was done. It was like 2020 or 2021. We're like, wait a minute, 5-5. Like we were trying to figure out the rule together. This was like the first game of the season. You remember that?
Yes.
And now you're an old pro with it.
Right.
Do you like it better? Like I like the 1-and-1 when you're trying to come back and you're trying to do some different things. You can put somebody at the line and get the ball back without exchanging any points, but I don't know. What's the benefit? Like
game flow is definitely better. Like
okay.
you're not going to spend, like with the current rule or with the old rule, I guess, the 1-and-1, basically like the men's game still has, like you can get off to a bad start in a half and a team can be, hit with 7 fouls relatively quickly. And then you're shooting free throws the rest of the half.
Sure.
And like in high school, I think it's even worse in that situation.
Sure.
So with this, again, you get to 5, and then that's when you shoot, and then you reset after each quarter. So you're not shooting free throws. And then the other thing is like it eliminates some of the like the box out situations like you have, for rebounding with the 1-and-1s, because like with the 1-and-1, you've got to box out on the first attempt whether or not it's going to go, because you don't know if it's going to go. So you're always boxing out. That can take more time. And then it also, from some of the stuff that I've read in this, it eliminates those box out situations, like as a prevention of injury, situations and that kind of stuff as well, which again, in high school, probably a little bit more prevalent. But I think the game flow situation is going to be a lot better. Like I've seen people, you make them earn the free throws and all that kind of stuff. So like you're not going to spend as much time, again, because the fundamentals, unless you're talking about some of the really good high school basketball programs, the fundamentals aren't going to be as good. So you're naturally going to have more fouls. And you and I have done enough high school games that when you throw in all the turnovers, that come with high school games as well, so again, I think the flow of the game is going to be a lot better because you're going to be cutting down on, like spending a whole half shooting all these free throws, just trying to grind your way through a half and stuff like that.
Okay. I'm on board. I mean, it doesn't affect the game to me as far as like in a negative way. It's like, okay, well, this is a little bit different, and that, a couple of years from now, I'll be all on board and I'll forget about the 1-and-1 and all that nonsense anyway. What I do like, and you touched on this, is the foul bias that fans always think that referees have, right? When, all of a sudden you look up and it's like 5-1 or 5-0, whatever.
Yeah.
That resets in the second
away as well.
Yeah. That goes away. You know what I mean? And so I would be okay with that as well, because maybe some people chime down a little bit in the stands.
Yes, I concur. Definitely concur about that. And I hadn't really thought about it in that aspect, but that's true. So Pat McAfee's taken his talk show, highly successful talk show, to ESPN. He's going to reportedly be making around $10 million a year to do it. Will you be more likely to watch or listen when the show goes to ESPN?
Neutral. I have yet to watch a show of his, and I probably won't watch when it's on ESPN because I'm never home. And I've heard snippets, and his takes are very interesting at times.
The Aaron Rodgers interviews and
right.
You mostly hear Rodgers talking in those situations.
Correct. And I'm actually a fan of his. I think he has some interesting takes on some things, and I think he's not afraid to speak his mind. And I did like him when I would see some clips of him on like College Game Day, that kind of a thing. I thought that was probably what triggered this move over, right? Because people like him, and ESPN figured, oh, well, the people like him, let's bring him over. So I think it's a good move for him. He's going to be making a lot of money. He's going to make his family a lot of money. So that's awesome. But yeah, I'm neutral as far as whether I'll be watching more or less.
Yeah, I think that I will definitely, at the very least, sample it, because my day job is different than your day job. I think it's going to be an afternoon show, or maybe, like late morning, early afternoon show still, from what I understand. And because I work from home, and I've talked about before, I've got the NFL Network on in the background most of the time, or I've got,
Right.
like a baseball game or whatever, some other shows like NFL Live in the afternoon, I'll flip it over to that. So because I'm home and I'm typically doing some kind of work on my computer while the show is on, I'll at least give it a shot. I like you, like I have not really heard any of it so far. Um, Somebody said something about his cussing. Supposedly, he says he is not going to be dropping F bombs on
Well, he won't be able
ESPN
to.
like he
So
does. Yeah. Well, at the very least, they can bleep him, if he
true.
does, or they can just leave him in there because,
Well, I guess
like,
they could.
remember The Last Dance? There were a lot of
That's true.
bombs dropped during that
That
show.
that is a good point. That's a good point.
Yeah. Yep. So, but he says that he's not going to. And again, even if he did, they will censor him. But I'll give it a shot and kind of see what it's all about, because I've even tried, like, I think, to find the pot, and like I think most of it is on like just the YouTube as opposed to some of the podcast platforms. And I've tried to find just the audio, and it hasn't been real easy to find most of the time. So I'll check it out, see what it's all
Yeah.
about.
Why not?
Whether or not I stay, that's up to him.
Yes, it is.
But a lot of people like him, and that's why ESPN's willing to go down this road.
Mm-hmm.
He's done,
Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
mean,
Very popular.
good for him. Like, very, very similar to our boss. He's been very entrepreneurial with
Mm-hmm.
what he has done with his platform, and he's made the most of it. And it has turned it into something that people like.
Yeah.
Like, he's not going to suit everybody's taste. I mean, nobody's going to suit everybody's taste, but it's pretty popular.
Yeah.
Fill in the blank. It's blank that after a 36-year run, MTV did away with MTV News last week.
I was shocked they still had it when I read this question. I stopped.
I was
watching.
shocked that they still had it when I
Yeah.
heard, the news that they were doing away with it. It's like, oh, really?
Yeah, I was
Apparently
watching.
they kept that, even though, it's like
I mean,
they don't even do
watching-
videos, I don't think, anymore.
Watching MTV News with Kurt Loder back in the 90s. That's the last time I probably watched MTV News, right? So I'm shocked that was still a thing. There's no doubt about that. And so it is shocking that after a 36-year run, MTV did away with the MTV News last week, because I didn't even know it was still there.
When I heard this news, I scrolled through. I had no idea what channel MTV was on. Like, I think the last time that I looked for MTV on my TV would have been like 11 years ago during the Manti Te'o thing, when I heard about what catfishing is, and I found out that there was wasn't that on MTV, the Catfish show? Didn't that used to be on
No.
MTV? I
Oh,
thought it
yeah.
was.
Oh, the actual, like the reality
show,
Yes.
not Manti, but there was a
Yes.
show called Catfish.
Yes, I believe it was. Yeah.
Right. And that, because I remember it at Swarbrick's Manti press conference that night when the news broke, he talked about this show called, like, there's a whole show devoted to this. And it's like, what are we even but that's like the last time.
Yeah.
So I had to go on my guide when I heard the news, and I'm looking, where is MTV even? And I'm looking at the programming, and it's like, there's nothing on there that I recognize. And it's just yet another thing that I think the internet, and probably more specifically social media, killed. There's no space for something like MTV News anymore. And again, like, I remember, like those late 80s and early 90s. You're obviously younger than me, but that was like, MTV News. We had MTV on, like, when I was in the Army, when we were still in the States, before I went overseas, like, MTV was on all the time. And it was like, Guns N' Roses, and, like, I can't even remember everybody, like, what was the in any, like, Motley Crue. There was just so much MTV playing, but it was always Kurt Loder, Tabitha Soren, all those different people, MTV News. But they obviously haven't been there a long time, and it's gone now. What's crazy is Kurt Loder, who was like sort of the biggest face of that whole thing. Like, he is older than my parents right now. He's like 78 years old.
Is he really?
He looked up pretty young. Pop-up video. That was VH1, I think.
Pop-up video.
Pop-up video. Yeah,
Oh,
that
I
was
remember
good.
that.
I remember that.
Yep. And my generation for MTV wasn't really even the music videos, honestly. It was like what was it when they put the kids in the house in the different cities and they watched them
Oh,
do their thing.
Real World.
Real
That's
World.
right.
Real World was right up my alley. Like that
That was a
was
thing. That was a thing when I was in
yeah.
college as well. I think the first few seasons of Real World were getting
Yes.
going at that point.
Real World was high school for
Puck.
me.
Do you remember Puck? Do you remember that
Oh yeah,
guy?
absolutely.
One of the
100%.
first controversial guys. Yeah.
100%. Yes, no question about it. So that was more like what MTV was when I was a kid, for sure. Yeah.
Headbangers Ball. And before I really even started watching MTV, I think it was like Friday night videos or something like that. Total Request
Yeah.
Live. Yeah. All the good old days back when MTV still had videos. But MTV News is gone. Thing of the past. Just yet another dinosaur.
Yeah.
Hasta la vista. All right, a couple quick ones from listeners. Tommy, would you rather be haunted lightly by a ghost you could never actually see, or see all ghosts but aren't haunted by them? So like the ghost
Oh,
is just hanging out with you and they're not necessarily bugging
yeah.
you?
So it's like that Ghosts show on CBS. Have you ever watched that? That's like a
I never
sitcom.
have.
It's actually not bad. It's actually not bad. I was really searching for something to watch, and I kind of ran into that on Paramount Plus. I dig it. Like, I would rather see all the ghosts and not be haunted by them. I would like to converse with them, talk with them. How did you die? What was life like when you were alive? All of the above. I want to see them all.
The haunting thing, nah, I don't think so. I think Tommy asked a haunting question last week. Jesse, it turns out, the place that he is staying in right now, he believes, is haunted
Does he have a monster in his closet,
by
Sean?
someone, not a monster, but he said there was one time, a few months back, they were in bed, and in the middle of the night, like 2 or 3 a.m., the TV came on. And it was like loud. And so he got up out of bed to go turn it off. And as soon as he picked up the remote without pushing any buttons, the TV turned back off again.
Was he dreaming?
I vote with you, though. I would rather see them and not be haunted than be haunted and not know exactly what was going on. Yeah. And the other question, not Notre Dame related, favorite adult beverage while watching football?
Well, I don't usually consume adult beverages at the house. So it's usually, and people who have been watching Irish Breakdown for many a moon here know that Mountain Dew is my drink of choice. And so that is usually what I am drinking when I am watching things at my house.
That's Vince's adult beverage, Mountain Dew.
Yeah. I mean, my favorite adult beverage is a good rum and Coke, but I do not partake very often and never at the house. So, yeah.
Well, here's how you know when a game is going on. If I'm partaking in adult beverages, it's typically when my snarkiest tweets come out. So, like, if you see a string of tweets on a Saturday or Sunday,
mostly on a Sunday, I would imagine.
Just assume I've got a nice cold frothy beverage nearby.
Probably, and it wouldn't be a
coincidence. All I've got to say
Cowboys
about that.
Playing.
Yes. It is mostly. It mostly happens like I can ride the regular season, but then
the playoffs.
It all saves up when the playoffs come around. That's when I'm at my worst. That's right.
That's awesome.
Yes.
That's awesome.
So that's it.
There you go.
Yep. All right. Well, thanks for being here as always. And again, we'll get some information, some knowledge on Ohio State football on tomorrow's show. Got an Ohio State reporter on, so we'll kind of see how things went. They had a quarterback competition going on in the spring, see how far that got, see what kind of questions, concerns they have coming out of spring as well. Thank you, K-Mac, and thanks to everybody else as well. And don't forget, Hit that like button on your way out. And of course, subscribe, rate, and review. And we will talk to you next time on IB Nation Sports Talk.